Шановні колеги, у нас сьогодні в гостях Анатолій Олексійович. Анатолій зараз працює в університеті Гонконгу, очолює програми, магістерські програми в галузі освіти, здобував свою освіту в тому числі і в Інституті державного управління і місцевого самоврядування при Кабінеті міністрів. З Анатолієм ми разом навчалися в інституті. Це був 1992-93 роки. Ми є першими випускниками інституту, а пізніше Анатолій навчався в університеті Торонто, захистив докторську дисертацію з філософії, працював тривалий час в Торонтському університеті, ну і зараз в Гонконг і працює в відомому світовому навчальному закладі. Я думаю, що буде цікаво нам поспілкуватися, послухати мого колегу. І, звичайно, я хотів би, щоб ви теж проявляли активність, якщо у вас є запитання, так само задавали запитання нашому гостю.
It's a great pleasure, it's a great honor to be back to the institute where I used to study, and we used to share desks and sit shoulder to shoulder and listen to the lecturers coming from other countries, coming from the political institutions of that high quality that you mentioned in the slides before. And I'm saying that this is something unique in some way, and I have kind of great pleasure to see your eyes, you young people sitting and aspiring for taking this kind of high positions in the corridors of the Ukrainian government, just kind of taking for new responsibilities and aspiring for new positions for this country. I prepared a kind of a different type of a presentation where we would work on on a case study. But let me just given this kind of a different format, if you can connect me back, connect me to the screen over there, it would be great. If you need a connector, I don't know if you can. This is a kind of a different format now. This is something that you can use just to. That's what usually happens between different systems. You come from one system to another. I come from another system, and we'll be talking about this system, and you will be asking me to what extent all that is adaptable, actually. So, and I apologize if I overgeneralize or do not take into consideration some of the points that are really important in your context, but which I may not necessarily know because of a long time being away from this country. I read about, I continue to read about the country and try just to stay on top of things, but at the same time it might be sometimes difficult just to be always in tune with the changes. So, okay. Right, I'll use some of the slides over there. Just going to put it up on the front page, please. No, it's not the one. And I'll not be using an academic kind of presentation. Maybe some next time. But so today I'll be speaking about world-class universities and rankings and partnerships. It's a very prominent topic in the context of East Asia, in the context of jurisdictions like Hong Kong, in the context of countries like China, but also other East Asian dragons and tigers, such as South Korea, Malaysia, Singapore, and others that are increasingly becoming contenders to the old economic system, which is still controlled by the United States and the European Union. So let me say this: I mean, nation states and the universities in those other contexts are something inseparable. Universities are seen as engines of economic development. In post-industrial societies, universities are not anymore those kind of social and cultural agencies. They still have some role to play in the social development or cultural nation building to some extent, but nation building also means a competitive position in the global economy. And that's what universities in East Asia try to focus on. They see the economic imperative as their prime imperative. So that in general, the whole conversation, the rhetoric in the government or in the universities has the university as an economic engine, an engine for social mobility, or an engine for creating a filter which allows to differentiate talents and see and actually select talents and place them in the right places and allow them just to create new ideas, new enterprises, and benchmark them at the global level. So that's I mean, the whole idea of the world-class university is pretty much how do you create this new type of an institution, and what really matters when you think about this new type of an institution. The concentration of talented students often depends on the concentration of talented scholars who pursue top performers out of school benches. So they kind of like these people in universities who can actually see the talent, can recognize Steve Jobs immediately, right? And create a kind of an opportunity for them. So the talented professor or the talented student also creates some advantages for universities in that way that they create a better image about the institution, but also a better image about nation itself, about the culture. And institutions are interested to acquire this kind of new status in a way, because that, as I said before, that kind of the pursuit of talent is pretty much allows them to stand out and actually become a magnet for in the competition which takes place locally among universities, nationally, as well as globally, right? So they try just to this kind of the self-sustained interest in terms of creating a place for talent, with the talent actually creating a better image of the institution, and the institution creating a better image of the nation when the nation tries just to sell the product global. And nations think about, not in terms of, supporting their own people, just working for their own people, but it means just kind of acquiring place and more space globally so that they can sell their product globally and actually can have more revenue based from, from selling that kind of product global, right? So that's the economic imperative pretty much kind of pushes for these types of institutional transformations, the transformations that are focused on talent development. But how do you know? How do you know how do you know who is talented? How do you know what really allows you to kind of to differentiate and know who is Steve Jobs right there? This kind of very early stage, from kindergarten, or let us say a little bit later, primary school or secondary school, right? Just what kind of system might kind of allow you just kind of to track that particular talent over the years? Or not even track, but also kind of create some, special zones, comfort zones, or innovation zones where these talents really can grow and spread and accumulate people all of the same kind. So let me just, so can I just use that kind of, I don't know if I have to sit here or can I, yeah, it's fine. This might be a little better, right? Fantastic, okay, that's great. So, let us, how much time do we have actually? Half an hour or so? Half an hour, right. 30 minutes, okay. Let us kind of like, we'll not have to kind of to do the exercise. I wish we could, because I would like to hear back from you. But let us say you have this situation, right? The education minister just invites you to bid, okay, for an equivalent of 500,000 US dollars for that you can spend over the next 5 years to send master degree level students from your city. You can be a maker, you can be head of department in the city administration, just to send a number of students to study at world-class universities, right? So the situation would be that by tomorrow morning, I mean, it's all, it's a very dynamic kind of environment. People have to act very fast, and in Asia, this is what happens really. There is no time. I mean, you have to catch up. Okay, and China has been catching up quite quickly, actually. So, so you have to present to the ministerial committee a clear plan, including a solid rationale for your choice of universities and programs to which you would send these people, right? And you're competing with 20 other cities. So you may lose this money. Only top 3 cities, or 3 authorities would get this money. So this is kind of a normal Chinese way of managing stuff, okay? So you don't spread, but you don't have, I mean, the budgets are very limited, resources are always limited, and you cannot spread the money over this huge country. They have more money, but they have larger country, a larger population. So proportionally, you can say, in Ukraine might be the same, or any country can be the same. The budgets might kind of be adequate in some way to what economies do. But China doesn't really do this kind of egalitarian strategy or approach to kind of spreading thinly, like, just kind of like butter across the bread, so you don't, like, just to cover the whole butter. No, they try just kind of like just to concentrate resources, and concentrate resources in some cities and in some universities. So not every university, not every city will get it. Second, you identify them by creating a bidding process, because how do you know who deserves? I mean, at some point in 1978, they tried just kind of like to select a couple of important universities like Peking University, Tsinghua, and a couple of cities like Beijing and Shanghai. But then they realized this doesn't really create a lot of kind of public support, or doesn't actually create a lot of competitive spirit. So they switched to this other to the other model. Okay. So if we had a chance, we would probably just go through this. But let me just kind of briefly cover why. I mean, in the end, I mean, usually kind of what we do in the exercise. Okay, let me just kind of ask you. I mean, which Can you name just 5 universities which you think would be strategic partners for Ukraine? 5 universities to which you would send your students?
National Law Academy of Ukraine in Kharkiv.
No, but if you were just gonna, because you know, you have an ambition. You have an ambition just to connect your economy with other economies. I mean, look. Let's talk about this way. Why would you need to spend this money abroad? Invest this money at home, right?
Right.
And improve the quality of education home. Why would you need to send these people abroad?
Like Chinese spend their
Why do they do
To
this?
get another experience and to bring it home.
Okay. Yes. One argument. Any other?
To accept new experience and take it into own country.
But you can.
I have just
This
said.
one.
But you can send foreign faculty members to your country. I mean, just taking like employ foreign faculty members, and they will share the experience. Why do you need to send a student there?
Yes.
Might be a little cheaper. I mean, you send one professor here. He or she meets in front of 50, 100 students, meets every day, and you know.
Point of view from Western civilization, yes, in Ukraine. For example, these universities give our students this point of view, approaches to different things, which were actually destroyed in USSR, for example, and they try to involve our students, our nation, in this process of globalization, of new approaches, for example.
Yeah, I mean, this is another way. But why would you need to send people for like the whole year? I mean, it's a kind of 1-year program. There are 2-year master degree programs. What would they do then? What would their job be? Do we need to know what their job be? I mean, just simply send them out and that's it. I mean, don't worry about what they do there.
In my opinion, because different countries have different level of their developing.
Okay.
And we should know how the other people make their own decisions. Maybe our making of decision are not correct, or we make not at all. And I mean that the other countries have the same needs, because people practically the same. First of all, we need to eat, we need to be protected, yeah, and the second our needs is to be developed, to have a high education, for example, and to start success. And the other countries which is more developed, they have another experience, which is more maybe take benefits.
So, in other words, if I understand you correctly, I would say if we get this kind of other type of experience there, right, which is important,
Yes.
then we also learn how others really make decisions.
Yeah.
So when we interact with them in the future, when we negotiate some deals, economic deals, political deals, we know how they think, right?
And besides, new contacts, maybe new partners in the future, maybe your students there in other countries will be your friend, will become your friends in future, and then in 10 years you will make a future together, you will make some projects together.
That's the core. That's the strategy. Okay? Send people there, they make friends there, they get into networks, okay? And then when you need to promote your national product, you have connections over there. You know how to get into the government, you know how to get into the network. Look at what Harvard does. Harvard University hires people who become later you know, decision makers at home. And then what does the United States do? What do they achieve globally? They achieve a lot. All right? They have a lot, they have huge influence. This is called soft power. This is called soft power. You don't need to be kind of military, aggressive, or whatever. You build friendships. You get contacts. You get connections, and then you promote what you really need to. So the Asian system was pretty much fast in kind of analyzing this soft power element. Okay? And then they kind of integrating the soft power element and using the university to do that. And instead of like saying, no, we can probably increase the quality of education here, but do we need to increase the quality as it existed before? That type of quality? We don't need to increase that type of quality. Because those people are already kind of, you know, they did their work. At a certain period of stage, I mean, it's a certain stage in the history, they did their work. Now we need a new stage, okay? And for the new stage, you need connections with the new types of thinking, with the future leaders. Those people who are your age, they go, they kind of build relationships. 20 years later, you come into power. People, your friends on the other side of the border come into power. That's another kind of like architecture of relations. Local world-class universities is kind of, as I said before, viewed as a strategy to enhance institutional and national prestige in global networks and hierarchies, and thus to advance local political, economic, and cultural brand globally. They are, okay, just to create world-class universities at home, because you, in the end, it's not only sending people abroad, which is important, but also building those kind of institutions to which those who you send abroad can kind of return. What is the purpose of you sending people abroad and then they stay there?
In most cases, Ukrainian students.
I know. I'm an example. I mean, just use me as an example. Right?
We see the battle.
But let me continue. I'm looking kind of like at the Chinese context. Okay. So those people were very smart. I mean, at some point, they actually didn't mind if people were going. Like hundreds and hundreds actually left, and they were fine. I mean, just, you know, it's a large country. I mean, you lose, you know, a number of people. So what? You educate new people. What's the problem? If you develop a good university at home, then you kind of recreate talent. But at a later point, they realized what is really important was the connection, the strategy of important partnerships, or kind of the strategy of strategic partnerships, right? So that you have those connections. So you take those people back, because and you don't take everyone back. Again, it's kind of like a Chinese system of selection. It's not like, you know, you simply invited and everyone comes back. I mean, no, you know. You take back only those who were successful enough to get into the highest ranking institutions, show well there, and grow up in the hierarchy. If they were so good, if you say those people were so smart, they left the country, they kind of were educated, you have to show that you were able to do something there. You had to overcome the difficulties of the circumstances, okay? Because lots of immigrants actually go and lose their identity there, they lose their professional affiliation, they lose their talent. There are lots of intellectuals who moved to Canada or other places and became taxi drivers, PhD holding kind of taxi drivers. So what's the purpose of that kind of, you know, investment at the personal level or at, you know, at the institutional or country level? There is no purpose. I mean, this is no value. So in that regard, the Chinese were actually smart in terms of, you know, they have this kind of religious attitude to meritocracy. And this religious attitude pretty much comes from Confucianism. Confucianism as a teaching, as a philosophy, and more so a state ideology. At the time when China actually wants to dispose Marxism, because Marxism is not useful anymore. Okay? So they look for another ideology. They had Marxism, then being said, it doesn't really matter what color the cat is, as long as the cat catches the mice, this is fine. So they changed, just had the Marxism for some time, and then moved in the capitalist system, which is kind of like impossible or unusual development from the Marxist-Leninist ideology. But then they the inadequacy between the superstructure and understructure made them push toward changing. They like the understructure. They like capitalism. They have their own oligarchs and so on. Now oligarchs need to protect their positions, their value, their wealth. So they need to change this Marxist ideology. And Confucianism is a good ideology in that way that it says, be tolerant, be respectful, enjoy the hierarchy, and respect your teacher, right? But at the same time, Confucianism is also good in that regard that it says that to get into the hierarchy, it's not by connections. It's not like, kumilstvo or whatever. Okay, so they also have their own kind of kumilstvo. They have guanxi. And then the Soviet system or socialist systems in some way, they somehow were able to create this type of relationship or very close people and so on. And so China has it very strongly embedded in their system too. But they understand that this kind of corrupted system or system of corrupted networks creates the damage or undermines the competitiveness of the country, the position of the country, the image of the country in the global systems. So they try, if you go to China and you read the Communist Party manifestos for China, it's all about anti-corruption now. It's all about anti-corruption. Corruption is a big evil. It's, they allowed people just to publicize online everything, a bureaucrat or any official is doing. So if I went to the office, I gave money, and then I said, okay, I publish this online, and I disclose the information about, the case of corruption. And this is what the Communist Party says, this is fine, this is great. Okay? So what is going on with the Communist Party? It's not all about the Communist Party, it's about elites. Elites using different colors, trying just to maintain their wealth and protect themselves and their children and their families for as long time as possible. A normal process, anyway. So for them, global competition for talented faculty and students pretty much allows to create this kind of leverage, just to downplay the local politics. Because, in local, you talk to local people and what they say. You need national pride. Okay? They talk about national pride. And national pride is something that is kind of a defensive mechanism. So anything coming up from outside is bad. Because all the elites have their own way to protect their entitlements. Something that they have developed over the years, right? During the Communist Party years. So they have to protect their own wealth. And their own wealth depends on these kind of corrupted types of networks. That's their wealth. They have their own kind of had their own benefits from the old system. So they have to protect themselves. So there's a kind of tension between the local and the different types of elites, the old elites and the new elites. So the old elites try just to dispose any external influence, while the new elites try to use the external influences just to fight against the old elite. So the world-class university is a new topic, and what they say, if you want to show that you are good, show it outside of the country and then come back. Second, there is this kind of like there is this consumerist mentality, which becomes more and more, becomes stronger and stronger. And what does it really mean, consumerist? Consumerist is always sounds kind of, has this kind of negative connotation. Like consumerist is bad, all right? What the consumerism also means, and then you showed Margaret Thatcher, and I was surprised because in the West, if you showed that kind of quotation, they would say, "Are you joking?" Because when she talks about good, protecting good, she means private enterprise, private initiative, not a public good. So she fights the public good and she promotes private initiative. And those kind of who are in the government, liberals in the West, they would say, there were demonstrations, but I saw this kind of like reports on her funeral a couple of days ago. It was the day before yesterday or something. Yeah, I mean, just and they showed actually the official ceremony, but behind that, I mean, when you read kind of the news, the streams on chats and so on, there are huge demonstrations actually against her legacy. And then this is kind of additional argument in terms of old elites and new elites, and what kind of good, what kind of good you're talking about. So, but in China, the good they're talking about now is pretty much this kind of individual freedom. Okay, more power to the person who has money. So, okay, let us say in the past, you would have an option only to send your children to university based on what was accessible and based on what was given by the government, I mean, within the kind of the limit of the money which the government was given to the university, and on the ability of your child to compete, to get good scores. That was really important also too. I mean, just to mention, meritocracy is really kind of a religious word there. But now parents have more money, and they have more options. They can buy a degree for their child by sending their child to Oxford, Harvard, and so on. So instead of like spending like let us say $5,000 US at home, well, let us say it's still subsidized. So in some universities, it's can be free of charge. But at the same time, if you go to a higher ranked university, which gives you a good diploma and puts you in a higher paying position or job after graduation, you definitely pay more. But as a parent, if I have $5,000, okay, I might kind of scratch my head a little bit more and say, if I pay $5 more and I send my child to England, would it be a better way? And the answer to this is very simple. It's not for the parents to decide, because this is what is decided by employers. Because they give an opportunity to the person holding a British diploma. So they discriminate against the local diploma. I mean, they don't discriminate in many ways, but in those kind of hidden terms, they do discriminate. Because they want somebody who speaks languages, different languages, as many languages as possible. They want somebody who can actually decipher symbols and be able to connect to kind of networks elsewhere. So they want that type of a different type of employee, right? So they want the talent. And if children and parents knew this, I mean, they would definitely kind of be, you know, not smart enough if they didn't kind of invest in the proper places. So you have to kind of like you just manage, have to think in terms of investment. So education doesn't really become a kind of an entitlement anymore, right? Again, remember I talked about the university as a social institution, a cultural institution, and university become as an economic institution. That type of change, or this paradigm change, is pretty much about, you know, an investor, and Chinese act as investors. They have no chance because they have to compete. They have too many people. They have fewer places at the top. So they have to compete more. And actually, because this system allows to have a low status income, social economic income status student to move up based on their talent, not based on their connections. So if they have good mind, they kind of write good, tests successfully, and then they kind of get through the system, and the tests are not really kind of examined by the school, but it's centralized, and so on. So it allows, you know, a kind of a student from a low-income family to move very highly in the position. Well, the opportunities for upward mobility are quite good. So in that regard, students can be, families can be quite serious about thinking about education as a kind of as a tool for improving this kind of status and taking family out of poverty, or taking them out of kind of a lower status. And actually, across the countries, across jurisdictions in general, tuition fees are getting higher and higher. Become, like, you know, the education in general becomes more expensive everywhere, in every country of the world. So parents, you know, as I said, this kind of what I said before, it's pretty much justified why they kind of look into kind of these top brand universities. Why top brand universities really become so important in the decision-making system of the society. As I said also before, your budget cannot really be large or sufficient enough all the time. Okay, so you have to kind of make a decision about whether you spread or whether you concentrate. Okay, so centers of excellence, I mean, the movement of the centers of excellence was pretty much a response to that. I mean, just kind of concentrate in fewer universities, pay higher salaries to fewer professors, make fewer universities shine. Okay, you come in, you go to China these days. If you're a Canadian or American university professor, you go to China and you become jealous. You become jealous. Why? Why do you become jealous? Because the quality of the infrastructure, I mean, it's incomparable. It's the old university campuses in the United States and Europe, they look fine. I mean, just from outside, if you are a tourist on the campus making pictures, this is fine. But if you work in the office, if you use laboratories, we're time's out.
No, we have to.
We have to?
Yeah, we have to.
Okay, just tell me. I mean, just give me a sign.
Yeah,
I'll see it. We don't really have much time. But in general, you know, just because the quality of the infrastructure, laboratories and so on, salaries are getting more improved and so on. And if they invite you as a foreign professor, they pay you pretty much like the same or higher salary that you would get at home, and so on. So in many ways, I mean, world-class university becomes this kind of political and policy instrument in many ways that allows you to differentiate various programs and create opportunities for accumulating talent, getting the smartest people back home, inviting those Canadian, American, European, Japanese, whoever you want. I mean, just you kind of make decisions really about, you know, I didn't talk about rankings. We don't really have much time to talk about rankings, but it's another system of how you create a filter. But you have these filters which allow you to, by using certain indicators in the system, so they're quite sophisticated, actually. It requires another lecture. These indicators allow you to see who you want to attract and who you don't really want to attract. Because again, as in China, they are quite strategic. They don't have a lot of money, but they know how to use the money and how to make investments that kind of allow to have the highest return on investment. That is really important. How to achieve the highest return on investment, right? So by using kind of on the system of those kind of globally visible, transparent, verifiable, credible indicators, the indicators that not only people in your government or your city can actually understand and read, but people across the world can see and actually, really kind of check if you're doing the right job. So that's even more important. And it's kind of another topic for the lecture when I would be comparing Ukrainian ranking systems with the global ranking systems, okay? That's kind of another kind of topic. But at the same time, let me just kind of stop here probably on making this kind of suggestion that the university is changing the system of arrangement of how you manage resources, how you attract resources. The university becomes an economic agent globally and controls the development of human resources more and more so. And the universities at home can be centers of excellence if you use proper systems of indicators that are credible and can be verified not only by your people inside of your government, but also people from outside or external experts. Right. And let me ask you for questions. I mean, just any questions or comments, because we don't really have much time now.
Do you have any projects to invite our students, for example, to learn in your university?
Yes, I do. I mean, that's why I have this bag, actually. All right. This is, I mean, those of you who can actually go to this summer institute, you're most welcome to join the continued discussions on these strategies and what other people do and how. And welcome to Hong Kong. I have only 2 copies. We can circulate and see. But these kind of brochures talk about the Summer Institute we will have in Hong Kong in June. They have people coming actually from these new economies, like China, Indonesia, South Korea, and so on. So they come together just kind of to share new achievements, but also to discuss some of the challenges that come out of the talk that I just kind of presented to you. I don't really want you to see this as a kind of a golden opportunity. It has a number of challenges of its own, and deserves another lecture. But I suppose, I mean, you can read my some publications on the web or in some journals. But and you are most welcome to exchange. I don't know if I have 50, I'm not sure, but for those of you who work in the field of higher education, might benefit most out of communicating with me those who have some interest in the regional development, in going and seeing, you know, how Hong Kong, Singapore, and other countries work, how they manage to make changes in a very short period of time, over the lifetime of one generation instead of like multiple generations. You know, you're most welcome to get in touch with me and just to ask for some connections, or I'll be most happy to see you in Hong Kong. You know, when you visit, just let me know and just send me an email, get a contact, and so on. Right. Okay.
Questions?
Questions, please.
Natalia, can you tell us which part of Chinese students came back to their native country after studying in the foreign university? Maybe you have figures some of.
Oh, you mean on statistics for the returnees?
Yeah.
There is a paper on that. If you have interest in, like, you know, like very detailed, I can send it to you. Just let me know. Yeah, but in general, as I said, Chinese are not interested in having these people back. It's not the purpose.
Yes, I see that you don't need all of them.
No,
but
you don't need all of them. I mean, that's good. I mean, let them stay there and be connectors on the other side. They're valuable. You know, Chinese think in different terms probably because they have many people. I don't know. I mean, Ukraine is not a small country. It has lots of people too. It's not like, you know, it's not like, you know, Liechtenstein. Like, you know, it's a big country, and I mean, it has lots of talent. It can reproduce this talent quite quickly, actually. You have these people who really want to kind of learn, who study languages, who read books, and so on. So these are not like, you know, dumb people. But at the same time, it's not about but at the same time, when you know, in this hotel where I'm staying, in your hotel, yeah, this kind of lady which kind of took my passport and showed my passport and said, well, you're not kind of Ukrainian anymore, but you're something. So you just kind of like what did she say? Вывтекли or something. I don't like. You know, this kind of mentality of seeing people like you know, traitors. You left. You betrayed your country. Chinese don't think in those terms. They think in terms of you went, you were a strategic resource. Okay? People in Chinese, not KGB. I mean, again, I mean, just you have to be too how to say it. They changed. I mean, they influenced by this mentality, but they are changing this mentality because in economic networks they don't really like this kind of talks, you know, KGB and so. And they have to change the kind of the mentality and rhetoric, the conversation, how they talk about it. But you know, if you look into how Chinese cultural attachés work outside, it's a different style, totally different style, more engaging, more interested. Like, what are you doing there? You know, I was in Toronto. Nobody worried about what I was doing in Toronto. Nobody gave a call. Nobody invited me to any kind of seminar. Nobody holding any seminars. I don't know what those people were doing there. I mean, just like, absolutely like, you know, like no country. Great place, provided by diaspora. You have opportunities, you have connections with diaspora. And those people, what do they do there? Enjoy their life or respond to bureaucratic kind of memos maybe every time, and that's why they are busy or whatever, but they don't do any work. You compare them to Chinese attachés who are quite proactive, organizing these seminars, connecting with people, going out to universities, meeting, inviting students, inviting professors, and keeping in touch. And like they use, it's a human resource. It's ability to work with talent. That's what kind of is essential. When we talk about, you know, these numbers, the statistics is not really important.
Questions, comments?
In Ukraine, what would you advise? We have a limited budget, as you say, and maybe it's better for Ukraine now in this situation. Then we get more students in foreign institutes, but more cheaper education, or just have a few students in higher level.
That's an excellent question. This is exactly how, you know, where Chinese would be very careful. You know, because that exercise, when I do this exercise, some people say, you know, send more students for a lower tuition fee. So let us say there is kind of like a lighted university which you know, charges only like 3,000–5,000 for a program. So you can send how many students per year? I mean, well, 100,000 a year. You can send like 30 students. Excellent. Chinese would say, absolutely not. What? What kind of networks they get in at that university? It's like we develop kind of connections for which kind of business, which kinds of strategy. I mean, in that university, where those people will go and work in which when they graduate, how much influence they have on their country? No. You have 100,000. You have how much Harvard charges? 50,000. So you send 1 or 2 students. Right? So I mean, they have this mentality of buying the best. Like in Singapore, their strategic partnerships are not really about, you know, partnerships in general. They're buying the best. It's like you go to supermarket, you buy food, or you buy the clothes, or you buy, you know, some of the gadgets and so on. You buy something which kind of has some good effect, can be giving you some good kind of, you know, return on your investment. So they think in those kind of investment terms, in terms of, you know, how you say excellence, how you measure excellence. It's kind of like by seeing how others measure excellence and what they say about that excellence. And that's going to becoming more and more global, because if everyone around the globe say this is excellence, then actually can say this is excellence. And I like the kind of the words of maybe as included words. The Peking University Communist Party boss, like a, you know, ideologist. I mean, they have still these people. Politruk, yes. And so that Politruk's kind of message is this. I mean, he went to see his kind of colleague in Moscow State University, which is nowhere or very low on Shanghai Jiaotong ranks, but at least kind of still among the only universities in the former Soviet Union is able to kind of get into the 100, according to the Times Higher Education ranking. So, and then he comes and he is amused. Like he said, look, I came to that university, and when I saw that these guys didn't have computers in the classroom, or so dated computers, I was kind of like ashamed. So from Peking University, they send donations now, give money to the Moscow State just to improve the quality of the infrastructure there, because they feel embarrassed. But at the same time, he said, you know, what was kind of most embarrassing for him was pretty much like talking about national pride. Because in Moscow, they think about national pride as like, who are they even rankings? I mean, you know, we have this kind of science, we send a person into cosmos, I mean, space, we have this kind of missiles and so on. This complacency, right? Like type of pride and complacency, like we did something 50, 100 years ago, and actually that's what was good. What you did now, I mean, and actually that's what kind of the big difference. And he says, look, for us in China, it's like national pride is when we become the head of the global race, then we'll be talking about national pride. At this point in time, there is no good basis to talk about national pride. So this is a new elite, okay? Communist Party bosses. For me, who was born in the Soviet Union, right, and was kind of pretty much studying against the communist ideology, I see this kind of Chinese communists, and I'm kind of like shocked. I'm shocked every time I speak with them. It's like, you know, why do they need this kind of communist, you know, title? Change it, throw it away, because it's not what you are now anymore. But they still kind of like, you know, their system is a gradual change. They hate what the Soviet Union did to their people. They think it's unfair. They want to kind of just to spread the wealth more evenly and not create a kind of social, political disruption or, you know, chaos. And creating chaos in such a huge country, it's even like worse, right? So, so they are very gradual. I mean, in some cases they're very fast, but in some cases very, very, you know, yin and yang. Like you have to define this balance where you have to be very gradual and where you have to be really fast. So this is a dragon's type of style of managing.
Okay.
Yeah.
We would
Thank you.
like
To say